how you can be the greatest salesperson on the planet.
Welcome to the Rethink Sales Show. My name is Derek Kelly. I'm here with Jim Shorkey. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
Yep.
It really helps the algorithm show our videos to more people that we can help with not just rethinking sales. That's a big piece, but recognizing that we're helping people live out their purpose. So the goal of this podcast, of this show that you're watching, is to help people rethink sales, one, and embrace their purpose. So go ahead and like and subscribe. And also, if you're watching on a podcast platform, go ahead and leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. Many people tell us they love it, they love it, love it. So we would just love to have that feedback. So Jim.
But we also want to hear if you don't like it or love it.
Yes.
So I want to back up a second before we get into this. So yeah, rethink sales. Okay, we understand that. But why don't we just focus on rethink? See, rethink.
Jim's going the same direction I was. Go ahead.
See, it's the thinking that produces the feelings. Thinking produces feelings, passion. And from the thinking and the passion, we then go to actions, which we get from expert counsel. So now we have the actions, and it's the actions that produce the results. Oftentimes people will tell me that thinking is the secret. It's really not the secret.
Right.
The secret is actions. But they've got to be the right actions. And so the right actions do come as a result of thinking, getting very emotional, seeking expert counsel, getting those right actions based on proven success principles, and then putting those actions into play. Right. So it is all about rethinking. If the thinking that if you look at your results today, results are the name of the game. If you look at your results, if they're not what you want them to be, then it's going to require you to rethink. That's really where rethink you comes from. You have to rethink. So we start off with rethinking, creating a new feeling, seeking expert counsel, creating new actions, and then producing the better results. Good actions, probability states good actions are going to produce good results. Probability also states that bad actions are going to produce bad results. So if we don't like our results, just merely it's information. The results that we have in our life, that's information. You're receiving information. And so if the results aren't what you want them to be, the information states that we probably need to go back, reflect, change our thinking, change our emotions, and then change our actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I was going to ask you about. Often we talk about rethink sales, and some people may listen and say, we're not really into sales, or maybe I'm an entrepreneur, or maybe I'm not. And it's what I've recognized for me, my story is that actually changed the way I'm thinking in all these personal areas in my life, impacted the way I did sales, impacted the way I connected with people.
It's all connected.
Often we think, oh, Jim and Derek are just giving good sales and marketing advice. Yes, but it comes from learning how to rethink. And often so many people on the internet talk about sales, but we have a different approach. We believe that if you can rethink not just how you think about sales, but how you think about your health, how you think about your love, right? And many other areas, right? How you think about your finances, how you think about your self-improvement, right? And journal those things. And we have a whole process that we go through. But if you can learn to rethink those things, it actually impacts the way you do sales. As I become more and more confident in who I am and living out my purpose, guess what, Jim? My sales have gone up. And isn't that profound? We think, oh, it's just knocking on the door more. It's just making another phone call. That's a part of it. But I really wanted to just have a conversation of why rethink sales and how does that connect to people living out their purpose? And I think we're starting to bridge that gap for people this is why rethinking sales is so important, right? On the big banner on our YouTube channel, you rethink your sales, get the results you want, right? And it's, what am I rethinking? It's change the way I think, get the sales I want. Well, how does that? I just want more sales. And it's a piece of that is learning how to rethink multiple areas. And that's why we bring on people who are in the nonprofit space, people who are in sales, different perspectives of sometimes the nonprofit folks we need to change the way they think.
They do. They really do.
And sometimes people like us, entrepreneurs, need to change the way we think.
Right? I think there's a point that you're missing here, and I'm going to bring it out here, is it's all the same. There is no difference. I used Rethink You 2.0 to build the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group. It's all documented. It's step by step. It's what I did. It's how I did it. So if you have an interest in the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, or maybe you never even heard of it, which is fine, you do a Google, look at what it is, and then understand that came from a position of bankruptcy imminent back in 1998. So what it is today, the seed of that to a large degree was bankruptcy imminent, and I was in a position where I had to do something, or I wasn't going to be here. So that's where the rethink part of it comes from. And so I went through this step-by-step process, and I did it, right? And then when we decided that we were going to launch this mentoring concept, I had to go back and reflect, what did I really do? Because I wasn't necessarily 100% sure what I did, because some of it becomes habit, and you just forget, oh, I did this because I did that because whatever. So I had to go back and really think about it, reflect on it. And so we put this thing together called Rethink You. And then we started testing it with a large audience of people. I think you told me around 500, correct?
Yeah.
So we have 500 people that we said, okay, let's do this Rethink You thing, Rethink You 2.0. And we found it worked. It worked. It was scalable. It was recognizable. The results were impacted. And so we knew we had something called Rethink You 2.0. And so here I am doing my thing, doing what I do, living my life. And I suffered a really bad stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke. I had 3 brain bleeds. And I should have died. I should have, could have, would have died. My doctors are very vociferous about that. I should have died. I should not have survived this thing. And so part of the stroke is the recovery from the stroke. And so what I've done is I've used Rethink You 2.0 in my recovery process. I know that sounds hard to believe, but it's true. So my point is exactly the same thing I did to build the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group. That's exactly what I'm doing to rebuild the Jim Shorkey body, which has to be rebuilt because I suffered some really major trauma to my body. And so I had this list of things that I do every day. You witnessed some of it today, Derek. We were you were getting set up for this thing, and I'm walking around a little island, just walking. And I probably did somewhere in the vicinity of, I would guess, 700-800 steps. That's not going to make me better instantly, but it's a step. It's a step. And rather than sit here waiting for you guys to get finished getting ready, I said, I'm just going to walk around here a little bit. And I walked. Just kept walking right around the island over there. And that's important.
It is.
That's really important. Everything I've read about stroke recovery, walking is a really big thing. And it's interesting that I can even walk. It was like when I was thinking about this, like when I came out of recovery when I'm out of the bad zone per se, still very shaky, but I'm coming out of it. And when I first came out of it, they got me out of bed and said, hey, we got to do some things, right? And so one of those things was the physical therapy. Well, physical therapy started off with, how long can you stand up? Imagine that. How long can you stand up? And they're like, you're standing up for 3 minutes. That's great. And so I'd stand up for 3 minutes doing some task that they had me doing. And I had to go lay down. I was tired. Walking was not even part of the equation. I really basically couldn't do it. And when I started doing it, it was with a walker. So I can recall this. I'm in the bed right now, sitting on the edge of the bed. I bring the walker up. I walk from here to outside and back. And I said, oh man, I got to lay down. I couldn't do it.
I remember you called me and you were like, hey, I took a 1 mile walk. And it was like, I'm sure you didn't start there.
No, it was maybe, I would be surprised if that starting point was even 100 yards. It was that difficult. And I would get very fatigued and very tired. And of course, when you're in the hospital and you're in bed and your muscles atrophy, there was a whole lot of things going on there. But the point is I couldn't do it. Then today I walked, as I just said, I don't know what it was. I wasn't really counting, but 500, 600, 700 steps, whatever it was. 2,000 steps would be 1 mile. 1,000 steps obviously would be a half a mile. So I walked probably close to a half a mile, and I keep track of this throughout my day. I want to be at 10,000 steps. When the day's over today, I want to be at 10,000. I can tell you right now, I'm probably right around 5,000. I keep track of that, which is part of Rethink You 2.0.
It is.
We have to track things. We have to journal things. We have to, what did we do? How did we do it? So my point is, ladies and gentlemen, my point is that you're going to say, just justifiably so, what do I have to do with the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group? What do I have to do with stroke recovery? Nothing. But what is it that you want to do? And so we're trying to give you that map quest. Map quest. GPS. How do I get from Irwin to someplace that I don't even know where it's at. So someplace in New York. I put the information in there and it says left, straight, down, up, around. And so it gets me there. So our Rethink You 2.0 program is a map. It is a process that you go through to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. I want to return to 100% health. Okay. That's my goal. I wanted to build the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group to a certain point. That was my goal. I had no money. I needed to get some money. I could only do that by selling cars, more cars, etc. So the process that I'm talking about today, Derek, is I am a product of the product.
Yes.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to sit here today and talk about the product being Rethink You 2.0.
Absolutely.
I'm speaking from the heart. This is what I'm doing. You can join me. That's your choice. Or you cannot join me.
Yep.
But I can tell you right now, Albert Einstein said his definition of his definition of insanity was doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm not doing that today. I already know the result. The result was shoulda, coulda, woulda, died. So I got to up my game, and so I have to rethink myself, just like I did with the car business.
And there was a study that I read recently on productivity, and it connects to what you're talking about with how do we rethink, right? One of the things we teach in the very first module of the course, you can go to resultsfromthinking.com right now. We preview that whole first module for you.
Yes.
Just so you can see it before you jump into the course. And we talk about what is your reason why, but we also talk about something very important that a lot of people miss. Why not? Why don't you want to do something? And they did a study, and they had 3 groups of people. They had people who were really focused on their why, to see if it'd make them more productive. People were really focused on their why not. And a third group that knew their why and their why not and merged them together to know what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And they laid out the obstacles they're going to face, right? So you think about it. I know what I want. I know why I want it. I know what I don't want. I know why I don't want it. And I see clearly the obstacles that I'm going to face in moving toward my goal, right? So if I sit down, let's do something very simple. I sit down, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I want to make 15 phone calls by 10 a.m. I know what I want to do. Okay, what's going to happen? I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to want to type in that first call into my system, or I'm going to go get a cup of coffee or need to use the restroom, right? I'm aware of those obstacles. So what am I going to do? Maybe I'm going to pull out a notepad, Jim, and I'm just going to make phone calls on my phone and not even worry about the computer because it's going to distract me. I'm going to get really focused on, I realize these things are going to stop me from being productive and reaching my goals. Just a small everyday life example, right? Not something super visceral but if I can just sit down and say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. Here's the obstacles I'm going to face. It's going to allow me to be more focused.
And make sure you get that. I know you've already discussed this, but get the reasons why in there. The reasons why that make you cry.
Yeah.
I don't want this because emotional. I do want this because emotional. And it could very well. Why am I making these phone calls? At the end of the day, the reason you're making those phone calls could be your children.
Yeah.
So children, what's that got to do with the phone calls? I make these phone calls. I know I'm going to sell a certain amount of stuff. It's going to create money. It's Christmas time. We want to do Christmas. We need the money to buy the Christmas presents, et cetera. And my reasons, you were talking this morning about your children and how excited they are about Christmas.
Yeah.
And that gets you emotional. And so now when you go to make those phone calls, if you have those children in your mind's eye, it's, you know what? I got to make these phone calls.
Yeah.
And so what's the most important phone call that you can make? It's the first one.
Yes.
The first one. What's the first step? It's the first step. What's the second step? It's the second step. It's a second phone call. And so we have 10 to make. We made 1. Check mark. We made 2. Check mark. You know, I really do have to go to the bathroom. We'll go to the bathroom. Get that done. Get back. Make that third one. Make that fourth one. And once you get into the 1, 2, 3, you start to gain momentum. And it's wow. And maybe you do make a sell in the process. Oh, wow, I feel good. And so you keep going. But for me, it was I knew. I know my different pain points.
Yeah.
And I know that initially I could only do 3 laps. Only could do 3.
Yeah.
I got to 4. And wow, check mark. I got to 4.
Yep.
And then I was having a hard time beyond 4. And I got to 5. I got to 6. I got to 7. Today, I'm averaging 10 miles a day. 10 miles a day. I can prove it. I have it documented. I'm averaging 10 miles a day. Is
and
that what
you set a realistic goal, right? We talk about this in that first module of your goal has to be realistic. If you would have said, okay, Derek, I'm getting out of this bed. I came and saw you pretty early on after the stroke. I'm going to get out of this bed and walk a mile today.
Yeah.
You would have been
I don't
deceiving
know
yourself.
that I could have done that.
Right?
Yeah. I
You
don't
would have
think I
set
could.
your goal too lofty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it is important to be reasonable, but then stretch beyond reasonable.
Yes,
So many
yes.
people talk about the big goal. And the problem with the big goal, the big bodacious, I hear these different terminology, is that it can be intimidating, daunting, and we tend to throw in that give up mode. I remember talking to Chuck about this. We laughed about this all the time, and I think
Yeah.
you and I have talked about it as well. The most difficult part of working out is putting on your shoes.
Yes.
Lacing them up and taking the first step. And once you take that first step, I got one done. Okay, let's take two. Let's take three. And then you're at the stop sign. And you say, I made it to the stop sign yesterday. You know what? I'm going to try to make 10 steps beyond the stop sign. So you do those 10 steps beyond the stop sign.
Right.
And you turn around and walk back. And I made some progress. So we talk a lot about it. We talk a lot about this in Rethink You 2.0, this idea of we aim for perfection,
Yes.
but we settle for progression.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, when
Wow,
we're doing our
beautifully said,
discipline,
Jim.
when we're doing our discipline journaling, was I perfect today? Of course not. That's a big load.
Yeah.
But did I shoot for perfection? I always shoot for perfection, knowing that it's not realistic. It's really
Right.
not. But did I make progress? So
Yeah.
yesterday I made it to the stop sign. Today I made it 10 steps beyond the stop
Yeah.
sign. Guess what I'm going to do tomorrow? Do you think I'm going to go the 10 steps and maybe throw a couple more on? And that's how I've gotten it from in a walker. I don't use a walker at all. I want to be clear about that. I don't use a walker at all. I just don't. I don't need to.
Right.
Although it was a great thing to have when I had it. It was that crutch, right? So if you need a walker, go get your walker and use that walker, because that is getting up with a walker. And you may think, that's no good. No, it's very good. So you have a walker and you get that 100 yards with the walker. Let's do that. Then we get 110, 120. And then we come back and we say, I'm going to try to see what I can do without the walker.
Right.
And maybe you can only get 50 yards, but you got 50 yards without the walker. Perfect? No. Progression? Yeah. I made progress.
And gang, listen to this. As we talk through this, like I can look back and see my process with Rethink You as we did it in 2018. Okay, I saw improvement in 19, saw improvement in 20.
Yep.
Okay, some setbacks in 21. Okay, how am I going to improve that in 2022 and 2023? And you start to do this and you start to look back and you realize, wow, look at the person I've become, even in a year, even in 2 years. Wow, actually, the change in my personhood has affected the way I think about my business,
And that's
has
the
affected
point.
the way I think about my family, and it's changed my life. I know Jim talks a lot about he wants people to come through this program and see lives changed. But it's not just, wow, Jim Shorkey taught me this great thing. There's a process called the Rethink You process that anybody can learn. The buck doesn't just
Exactly.
stop with Jim.
Exactly.
This is a message that we talked about with Chuck Bellina and Steve Gardner. There's a legacy leaving piece of you can learn this process and teach it to other people, right? And that's powerful.
there's no question.
Right? We've had testimonies of people like Rodney. You can go back and watch a few episodes previously of him on here and how his life's been changed, not just by Jim or myself, but by this process that you can implement and you can see improvement. And that doesn't always make it easy. We're very clear that it's a hard path, but it is doable. And so maybe, I remember we talked about this when we first launched the course. Maybe somebody can only get through the first module or two.
That's a
great.
step.
Start there.
Start there. Yeah, that's a step. The first step is the first step. And if you want to play basketball, you got to start with the fundamentals, dribbling and bouncing the ball with your right hand, your left hand, and then taking a couple shots and seeing how you do. And the results that you're getting, how many did I make? Can I bounce the ball right hand to left hand, back and forth? It's amazing when you look at the really good coaches out there. They really drill on the fundamentals, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
The fundamentals. And the first step, like I said, is the first step. Once you get out there and you take that first step, let's think about it. You took a step. So tomorrow, is it possible we can take two? So we got two. Wow, great! I got two. The next day, can we get three? The next day, can we get four? Maybe we'll really try hard the fifth day and we'll get 10 steps, like 10. Oh, geez, I thought one was the limit. I got 10. And so you keep going and going. And before you know it, you're at that mile. I walked a mile. Wow.
Right.
I was walking with a walker 50 yards, if that. It was a hospital ward. How long could it have been? I can tell you it wasn't 100. So I got that 50, but it's like, you know what? I got to, and they would ask me, like,
Right.
how you doing, man? You've been standing now for, imagine that, standing for 13 minutes. I can stand for 2 hours now. But back then it was like, whew, I'm tired. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because my body was so weak from what I had gone through. Number one, the stroke, but also just being in bed, a guy that doesn't spend a lot of time in bed. I'm very active, but I lost that activity with what happened. So your muscles atrophy very surprisingly very quickly. So I had to build them back up again, and I'm still working on that. I have a physical therapy strategy, and my physical therapist, we meet once a week, and I can't walk when I'm done with my physical therapist. I can't walk. I literally can't walk. I can walk, but it's my legs are very tired.
You're
because
slow.
we're working on the quads, we're working on the knees, we're working on things that I've got to bring back. But I have an expert in my corner.
Right.
A physical therapist. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm a worn out old car salesman. That's what I am. So my expertise is not physical therapy. And by the way, I'm not giving medical advice here, so don't take it that way. I'm telling you what I'm doing. You got to figure it out for yourself based on expert counsel in your scenario.
Right.
So I'm not giving medical advice. I would never give you medical advice. It's not my knowledge is not there.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Very aggressive with the physical therapy, very aggressive with the walking, very aggressive with the diet, very aggressive with the sleep. Everything I do is calculated. That's Rethink You 2.0.
And a lot of you hear this and will say, "Oh, that sounds so simple."
It is.
What's the meat in this course? And it's really, we give you some really, we give you strategies that you can implement. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm stuck here. I don't know what to do. Okay, look at the creative cycle, right? We go through that there's a whole cycle we teach of, okay, you're stuck here. Which way do you need to go? Oh, answer yes or no to this question. Move here, right? We teach the strategic continuum. Okay, what's your plan? Is good plan, bad plan? We teach disciplined journaling, and we teach very practical things that, if honestly, I use these things a lot when I'm stuck, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know I need to, make 10 sales calls today. But what happens when I get stuck and I haven't done it for 3 days? I make sure I'm going through those things we teach, right? To, I need to, let me look back at this resource that we have called the Creative Cycle. Let me look back and see how my discipline journaling is going. Let me look back and, those things anchor me into following through, right? Because it's easy to say, take 10 steps today, take 11 steps tomorrow, 12, right? It's easy to say that, but then what happens when you get stuck, right? And I think that's the really big value of the course, is you start to get outside of yourself, right?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it's so easy for me to get stuck in the day-to-day of, I need to do this thing or have this person work on this thing. And then my wife and I will go, since I'm working on love, it's one of the things I'm working on this year.
Good for you.
We go once a month and we take the whole day without the kids. We have a babysitter. And I take the day off, right? Because every entrepreneur always says, if I were an entrepreneur,
but you had to rethink yourself to do that. That's Rethink You 2.0. And something that comes to mind, hearing you talk, something that comes to mind from Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors, a great self-development guy. And Jim Rohn said this repeatedly.
Yeah.
Easy to do.
Yes.
Easy not to do. And that's the challenge.
Yep.
It's easy to do. It's easy. Let's think about it. It's easy to put your shoes on and lace them up. It's easy to take that first, second, third, fourth, 10th step. It's easy, but it's also easy to talk yourself out of it. It's easy to not do it. So we have to get ourselves disciplined to get out there and put those shoes on and go for that walk or make those phone calls, whatever the case may be. There's always things that you, as an individual, talking to the ladies and gentlemen that are watching us, there's all these things that you need to do that really are easy to do when you really think about it, but they're also easy not to do. So making that phone call, why do we make it so difficult? We pick up the phone, hello, this is Derek Kelly calling. Hey, did I interrupt anything important? Great. Hey, the reason I called today is, etc. That's really, if you think about it, we're not talking about climbing Mount Everest. We're not talking about running a marathon. When you think about it, it's pretty darn easy to do. But the challenge is it's easy not to do. The first phone call is the first phone call. The second phone call is the second phone call. I want to make 10. I got to make the first one first. I got to make the second one second. And pretty soon I'm at 3. And now I'm starting to gain some momentum. Okay, I'm going to do one more before I go to the bathroom. That's 4. You know what? I think I'm okay. I'm going to make 5. And then we go take our bathroom break, come back, and I've got my 5 under my belt. I can see the results. I'm getting a little pumped up here. I make 5 more. And then when you really know that you're getting somewhere, when the goal was 10, and you do 12.
Yeah.
You do 13. One more. I got 14. Victory, trophy time, medal time. I got 14.
Right.
But I promise you what's going to happen is the next day you're going to sit down and do your phone calls. You're going to make 14.
Yeah.
Because you already hit that barrier. And so maybe you'll get to 15. And that's how it grows from 10 to 14 to 15 to
Right.
20 or whatever the case may be. But the bottom line is if we're in a results-oriented frame of mind, we know intuitively
Yep.
that 10 phone calls is a good number.
Yep.
But 14 is a better number.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's
1 mile is a good number, but if I feel up to it, a mile and a half is going to be better. It's going to be better. And I'm not going to walk 10 miles per se because of that mentality, but I got to keep going inch by inch a little better. And pretty soon I will be at that higher mark.
Yep. And in the past episode or two, we talked a lot about self-doubt that creeps in,
Oh,
right?
God,
So
yeah.
we don't need to go through that all again, but just go back and listen to that. The value of conquering that self-doubt. We can get stuck there. And that was in my head, entrepreneurs, everybody always says, as an entrepreneur, you can take whatever day off you want. That's
No, you
not
can't.
actually true.
No, it's not
and
true.
it forced me to stop and say, I'm going to take off one day a month. I'm going to plan it 3 or 4 weeks in advance.
for you.
And I'm going to spend a whole day with my wife. But you can see that progression and that change, guys, as you go through this process. And that's why Jim and I just wanted to have this conversation today. Not that you knew it was planned. You never know these things are planned. But really wanted to have a conversation about how does Rethink Sales, this show that we're having right now, connect to your purpose, right? Because a lot of people say, I'm not really in sales. Great. Use this process for your health. Use this process for your love. Use this process for your own personal development. So we bring on a lot of nonprofits and folks that we're trying to help them think differently about how they're even doing that. We talk to a lot of salespeople that are rethinking that.
Steve Gardner, we're trying to get Steve here today, and he's busy selling.
Yeah, he's busy.
He couldn't make it. But the fact is that Steve Gardner, close friend of mine, has embraced Rethink You 2.0 and put it into play. So not only does he do it himself and has had incredible results, but he's also has this passion for teaching it to his boys, for teaching it to his team, for just, hey, this works. And it's funny. I thought you just made me think of something. I was hoping Steve was going to be here because I was going to pull his chain a little bit about this one. But I went to a gathering. Steve Gardner was in the gathering, and people wanted me to talk about this idea. And so I went through the idea, and we talked about it. And, and Steve will tell you, he thought I was crazy.
Yep.
I wish he was here because he would say he did. He thought I was crazy. He thought I was nuts. He thought I was wrong. But we talked through it, and we worked through it, and he did what I told him to do. To his credit, he did what I told him to do. And the results have been incredible for him, and his family and his boys. And he's got goals that are just really great. And he's working on his goals, and he's seeing that I wasn't crazy, that I did understand, and that I did use this information that I was trying to share with him and his group. The information I was trying to share with him and his group was what I did to build the Jim Shorkey Family Honor Group. And as I've said many times, results are the name of the game. We created incredible results with the Jim Shorkey Family Honor Group. You can just go Google that and look at it and say, holy crap, this came from bankruptcy imminent? Yeah, it did. And people don't necessarily believe that, but it's true. That's what happened. And it's all principle driven. It's all discipline driven. It's all idea driven. But more importantly than anything about it, it's all based on expert counsel. I was in a really bad place, bankruptcy imminent, things weren't going well. I've told this story 1,000 times. I'll just be real quick with it, but I was lost, and we were going down. We were not going to make it. My dad had died 2 years previously. If I knew half as much as I thought I knew when my dad died, I would have been really smart. The fact is I had no clue. I was arrogant. I knew it all. Turns out I didn't. And 2 years after my dad died, the company was bankruptcy imminent. We were going down. And so I went to Mr. Hamilton, my dad's former partner. He knew what he was talking about. He was definitely expert counsel. He had the things that I wanted. I wanted the nice cars, the nice house, the nice boat, if you will, that just these things that he wanted, that he had. And I wanted those things. And so I asked Mr. Hamilton for a list of 10 things that I should be doing to be a successful automobile dealer. And he told me that he would think about it and told me to come back the next morning. He called me, James, come back tomorrow, James. I'll have a list for you. So I go back, I get the list, neatly typed up, really cool. We spent some time on this, and it was 10 things. And I remember this very clearly. I looked at the list, and it was like, I'm not doing any of this stuff. I'm not doing any of it. I learned very quickly that I needed to do this list because I came from expert counsel. So I started doing the list, and I could see that needle start to move.
Yeah.
And I went back for more visits with Mr. Hamilton. He kept giving me new ideas, and I kept executing those ideas, implementing those ideas, and the needle kept moving. And then I joined think tanks. That was a huge graduation from the expert counsel of Mr. Hamilton to the expert counsel of others out there, because there's more. There was more obviously than just Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah.
So I went to these think tanks. I got involved in think tanks and just kept learning and learning. And I remember I would go to my think tank and I would have a blank piece of paper, a blank notepad, and I would write at the top of the paper, "I am here to learn," and I would number down that piece of paper 1 through 20, whatever, and I would just put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, down through 20 or whatever, and I would just be prepared to write down ideas.
Yeah.
And so I would get an idea. Ooh, that's a good one. Let me write that down. Ooh, I like that one. Let's write it down. So I'd end up with 20, let's say, but I knew that was too many. So I knew I needed to pare that down to my magic number. I don't know why. I can't explain this, but I like the number 10. I always did. So I had to get it down to 10. Because it would be overwhelming. So remember, when you hear me talk about the realistic goal, sometimes we give ourselves too much. We load it up too heavy, and it's just a heavy load. Should we take 10 pounds and make 10 trips? That's 100 pounds. Or should we take 100 pounds and make 1 trip? Depending on your level of strength, you could kill yourself on that 100 pounds. So maybe we should pace it out, right? So anyways, I would always try to get it down to that magic number of 10, then go back and implement those. And as I was implementing those things, that needle kept moving and moving. And so I had the 10, but then maybe I'd throw in a couple more that were on the elimination list. Let's try those 2. So there was 2 more. So I didn't even have to necessarily go back. I already had 20. So I got my 10. I'm rolling. The needle's moving. So let's add a couple more in. Let's add a couple. So I kept doing that. And then I go back again with that blank piece of paper. I am here to learn. And I would write down more ideas and go implement those ideas. And it's something that Jim Rohn, I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn. You'll hear that when you hear me talk. Jim Rohn said very profoundly, things get better when, and I'll refer to myself, things get better when I get better. So if I want to get better, then I have to get better. And so remember what I said, results are the name of the game, right? Results are the name of the game. If I don't like my results, the only way for those results to change is I have to get better. I have to do a better job. And as I said earlier, Albert Einstein said his definition of insanity was doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. I wasn't willing to do that. I knew I had to make changes. Make sense?
Yeah. Jim, thanks for sharing that. Just the value of expert counsel and really just making that realistic goal and going after it, right? So you guys can just hear just how thought out this process is. So click the link in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the link below and go ahead and check out the course, right? And leave us a comment. What was the most impactful moment from this time together? So Jim, thank you so much, guys. Like and subscribe below, and we'll see you in the next episode.